Hello everyone, wishing you all good health and peace in life. The truth, once revealed, does not bring peace immediately. Sometimes, it brings a storm. Trang's father, the man who caused a deep pain, can no longer hide in the shadows. Now, it's time for justice, and CEO James, once known for his calm strength, must choose how far he's willing to go to protect the woman he loves and the truth she deserves. But justice is never simple, especially when it means going against someone once close. Will Trang stand by and watch her father fall? Or will she fight back, even if it means losing James forever? What happens when justice and loyalty collide? Will James's heart remain steady, or will resistance from Trang test the very limits of what he stands for? One thing is certain. This is no longer just about the past, it's about the kind of future they're willing to fight for. It all began on a sweltering afternoon when the old wood processing machine sputtered its last breath. James stood in the center of the dusty warehouse, sweat glistening on his brow, watching the idle blades that once carved the future of his company. The silence in the factory screamed louder than any machine. Something was deeply wrong, and it went far beyond mere hardware. Failure.
The damage had already been done. Weeks earlier, the company had nearly collapsed due to a sudden capital withdrawal, project sabotage, and internal betrayal. It had left hundreds of workers unemployed and devastated. James had spent countless nights piecing together the truth behind the downfall, only to arrive at one devastating conclusion. The man behind it all was none other than Trang's father.
James could still remember the last time he saw Trang, her eyes full of guilt, her lips trembling as she asked for forgiveness. She had left for overseas studies shortly after, leaving only a quiet message: "My father is not a bad man, James. Please forgive him." But James knew better. He remembered the last time he forgave someone, John, and that mercy had cost them dearly. He had hesitated, yes, because Trang had been someone special, more than just a colleague. She had been a connection to a world where things were simpler, more innocent. But how could he protect that innocence now, when her father had knowingly caused so much suffering? James sat across from Tuan in the dim light of the tool shed behind the warehouse. Tuan was firm in his stance. "We cannot let this go, Anne. You forgave John once, and look where that brought us. This man is worse. He didn't just hurt you, he destroyed families. There are workers out there who couldn't pay hospital bills for their loved ones. Do you think they can forgive him?" James nodded slowly, his hands clenched on his knees. "I know," he said. "But Trang." James sat across from Tuan in the dim light of the tool shed behind the warehouse. Tuan was firm in his stance. "We cannot let this go, Anne. You forgave John once, and look where that brought us. This man is worse. He didn't just hurt you, he destroyed families. There are workers out there who couldn't pay hospital bills for their loved ones. Do you think they can forgive him?" James nodded slowly, his hands clenched on his knees. "I know," he said. "But Trang." Tuan leaned forward. "Trang didn't do this. Her father did. She may want forgiveness, but we have a duty to those who suffered. Justice isn't vengeance, and it's responsibility." Still, the weight of the decision gnawed at him. James didn't want to be the villain in Trang's story, but he had to be the protector in his own. In the days that followed, James reached out to Fat, a former gang member turned honest farmer. He had hoped Fat could gather intel, help track the man responsible. But Fat had left that life behind. James respected that. Maybe it was for the best. He would find another way. Meanwhile, news reached James's quiet, kind-hearted partner that her biological parents might still be alive. After believing they were dead for more than 20 years, she was shattered by the sudden revelation. James comforted her through tearful nights, urging her not to make any decisions out of fear. If you want to find them, he told her gently, do it for yourself. But if they never came looking for you, you deserve to know why. Amid the emotional storm, James kept moving forward with the investigation. Every paper, every transaction, every secret meeting that Trang's father had arranged was slowly unearthed. With the help of his legal team and some inside contacts, James began building a case, not for revenge but for truth. But then, an unexpected message arrived. Trang. She had returned, her hair shorter, her face thinner, but her eyes the same. James, she said quietly, standing at the edge of the garden where they once shared morning coffee, please, don't do this. James looked at her, pain flickering in his chest. I have too. He's my father, and they were my workers, Trang, my family. They lost everything because of him. She fought tears. He didn't mean to. You don't know what he meant, James interrupted gently. But I do doubt he stole. He manipulated. And when things went wrong, he walked away without ever looking back. Trang took a deep breath. If you do this, you'll lose me forever. James stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. I lost you the moment you asked me to protect someone who never protected anyone else. I still care for you, Trang. I always will. But I can't ignore what he did. Not this time. That evening, James submitted the final piece of evidence to the authorities. Trang's father would be brought to court. The law would decide his fate. James didn't sleep that night. He watched the stars fade into a gray dawn, wondering whether justice always came at the cost of love. But then, in the quiet moments of morning, Teep brought him a cup of lemon tea. She didn't say much, just sat beside him, holding his hand. And somehow, in that simple act, James knew he had done the right thing. The courtroom was cold, sterile, nothing like the heated, passionate storm that raged inside James's chest when Trang's father was let in. Wearing a gray suit and a face hardened by years of power, James didn't flinch. He watched silently as the man took his seat, flanked by his lawyers, confident, composed, as if nothing could touch him. Maybe he still believed money could erase everything, but not this time. James had brought with him more than just documents. He had testimonies, financial trails, confidential recordings, and the voices of people who had lost their livelihoods because of one man's greed. And when the evidence was laid out, brick by damning brick, it was undeniable. Trang was there too, standing in the back, wrapped in a coat to sizes too big, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She didn't speak. She didn't try to stop the trial. She just watched. James saw her only once during a recess, as he stepped into the hallway. She approached, but not too close. You did what you believed was right, she said softly. He nodded. I wish it hadn't come to this. Trang looked down, her voice barely a whisper. Me too. But I see it now. He wasn't just my father. He was the man who destroyed the lives of so many. I didn't want to believe it. I still don't. But the truth doesn't need us to believe in it, does it? No, James replied. It just needs us to act. She gave a small, sad smile. Goodbye, James. And just like that, she was gone like a chapter that had quietly closed itself. Back at the countryside house, Teep was tending to her lemon vines when James returned. The sun was setting, casting golden rays across her skin, and for a moment, she looked like she belonged to another time, another world far away from courtrooms and betrayals. How did it go? She asked. Not looking up. It's over, he replied. She nodded, sensing the weight of what he carried, but not pressing for details. Instead, she walked over, placed her hand on his chest, and said, let it rest, James. You did what you had to do. James held her close, breathing in the quiet strength she always seemed to carry. But peace wouldn't last. A week later, James received an anonymous message. "You've made enemies, James. Some things were never meant to be exposed. You want justice? Let's see if you can handle the price." At first, James dismissed it, just an empty threat from a crumbling empire. But then the sabotage began, shipments rerouted, contracts mysteriously canceled, suppliers going silent. Someone powerful was trying to choke his company to death from the shadows. Teep noticed the stress returning to his eyes, the way he stared blankly at his phone long after the screen had gone dark. "You're not alone in this," she reminded him one evening, over a simple dinner of grilled corn and steamed clams. "I know," he said, reaching for her hand, "but I feel like I've pulled back a curtain, and behind it is something darker than I ever imagined. Then let's face it together." And for the first time in weeks, James smiled. Teep, too, was on her own path now. The truth about her parents had cracked something inside her, but it hadn't broken her. With James's quiet support, she finally gathered the courage to speak to her Uncle Keen, confronting him about the lie he had kept all these years. "I wanted to protect you," Keen said, eyes filled with guilt. They asked me not to tell you. Said it was safer that way." "Safer for who?" Teep asked, her voice shaking. "For me, or for them?" He didn't answer, but he gave her a name, a location, a fragile thread leading to a past she had long thought buried. Now she had a choice. Should she pull at that thread, or let it lie? The days ahead were uncertain. James had unleashed a reckoning that was far from over. There were enemies in the dark, watching, waiting. But he had also lit a spark, a promise that the truth would no longer hide in shadows. Beside him was Teep, stronger than she had ever been. And even if the road ahead was steep, they would walk it together. Justice had a cost, but it also had a future. A lesson learned, the cost and courage of justice. Life has a strange way of testing our values, not when things are easy, but when our hearts are divided between what is right and what is personal. James's story is not just about betrayal or loss. It is about the courage to choose justice, even when love begs us to look away. In every decision we make, there is a moment of silence, a space where our conscience speaks louder than emotions. For James, that moment came when he discovered that the man responsible for the downfall of his company and the suffering of countless workers was none other than the father of someone he once deeply cared about, Trang. He could have walked away. He could have let it go. After all, Trang had pleaded for forgiveness, and he had every reason to hold on to their connection, to preserve whatever pieces of warmth remained. But James chose differently. He chose to do what was right, even if it meant standing alone. From his choice, we learn a powerful lesson. Justice is not vengeance, it is responsibility. It is the voice of those who suffer, carried through the actions of those who dare to care. Forgiveness has its place, but so does accountability. And when innocent people are harmed, families destroyed, futures stolen, justice must come first. We also learn that doing the right thing rarely brings comfort in the short term. James lost Trang. He became the target of silent enemies who thrived in the shadows, but he kept his integrity. And in a world where truth is often buried under convenience and fear, integrity is priceless.